Welcome to the Catalyst Sale Podcast. Whether you are a sales professional, not in sales but interested in helping people solve problems, or a founder CEO who is looking to grow your business, you'll find practical tools, stories, and experience you can apply to your role. I'm your host, Jody Mayberry, and I'm here with Mike Simmons, the founder of Catalyst Sale. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Jody.
On past episodes of this show, we have talked about being NHL fans. I grew up a St. Louis Blues fan, and Mike Simmons grew up a New York Islanders fan. And one of us, as we record this episode, one of us is extremely happy, and that would be me, because the St. Louis Blues are in the Stanley Cup Finals. But a situation happened in Game 5 that led Mike to a topic that he wants to talk about. So, Mike, set us up. What happened?
There was a blatant trip in the Blues offensive zone of a Boston Bruin player, and a goal was scored by the Blues and a penalty was not called.
Mike, that's just not fair.
Are you saying that there might be a different perception of what happened there?
No, I'm saying it's not fair that there wasn't a call and the Blues scored. Now, personally, I was a hockey player for years, Mike. I think it was an embellishment and then somebody laying on the ice to prove a point while his team got scored on. But I'm a Blues fan, so if you're from Boston, you could probably say, no, you're absolutely wrong. But as a hockey fan, that's what I think happened. It was a clear trip with a little embellishment and then someone laying on the ice to prove a point.
How many times have you ever embellished something to prove a point? Maybe even in the last 6 months.
Oh, my goodness. I think we all, I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I hope other people do it as much as I do. No, I don't think I do it often, but you know, when you get hit in the shin with a stick, right? You want other people to know, oh man, I just got hit in the shin and it hurt a little bit. I'll tell you what, my son almost invented embellishment. He'll say, ow. And then he'll go, oh, that didn't even hit me. He's just so prepared for it that sometimes he'll say ow before it even happens.
It's awesome how we can anticipate those things, right?
Yes. So I think we all do a little embellishment. I personally don't think I do this, but men have a reputation for embellishing a cold or the flu, where women have the reputation of being able to just push through any illness and they never skip a beat. But they say a man gets sick and he just wants his mother. So I think that there's a little embellishment there.
It's amazing the different areas where we embellish. And what I think is kind of funny about it is we do this and this is actually something we control. We control the way that we react to a given situation. We don't control the situation. We can't control the fact that something happened, depending on if it was us that actually did that. So I guess there are situations where you can maybe figure out a way to trip as you're walking up a set of stairs. And I've been known to do that multiple times. I was wearing flip-flops, and I tend to wear board shorts and flip-flops. That's kind of my thing. And we were at an ASU game. They were playing Oregon State a couple of years ago, walking up the stairs. And for whatever reason, in the basketball arena where the Sun Devils play, it's a concrete steps. So like most arenas, walking up the stairs. And for whatever reason, I didn't think there was the last step. So I stepped through with intention. And the only thing that slowed me down was the concrete. And the thing that hit the concrete was my big toe. And I shattered my big toe. And I'm carrying a couple of cups of whatever. And I like to attribute it to athletic ability. But in one move, I landed, got back up, didn't spill the things that were in the cups, and continued to walk out to the Jeep. And then once I got home and actually had to put pressure on it again, realized I had to take a trip to the emergency room to go figure out how they could either stabilize or do something with it. And I know functionally there's not much that they can do with a toe, but I ended up being in a boot for a period of time to help protect that thing. But it hurt so bad, yet I made it out to the Jeep.
Well, I have one embellishment story that I will admit I've never told before. I'll tell that. Then I want to move on to talking about owning the outcome rather than just embellishment. But when I was a park ranger, once a year we would have in-service training where rangers gathered in one spot. We'd do all sorts of training, and we would stay at this particular place. It was an old military fort that was now a park, and they had housing, old officers housing. And several of us would be in a single house together. Well, park rangers like to joke around, and one time some other rangers moved a bed to right outside my door. So when I opened my door, there would be this really low bed there because it was like a fold-out bed. So it was barely off the ground. Well, I happened to hear the commotion because they did it early in the morning. I happened to hear the commotion and was able to just peek through and see what they were doing. So I thought, well, there's a perfect opportunity. I'm going to play this up. So when I got dressed and when I came out of my room, of course, people were watching to see what would happen. But I knew the bed was there and I totally embellished it. I tripped over the bed. I fell onto the bed. I rolled off the other side and just made a deal of it, acted like that's what really happened. And then I used that as an excuse to start doing practical jokes on other rangers because I was getting them back for what they did, even though I completely embellished what happened to me. One of the things I did is I snuck into the ranger that put the bed there. I snuck into his room, and we do a lot of physical training at these. So I would bring some tiger balm with me in case I had a sore muscle. So I set his alarm for 3:30 in the morning in his bedroom and then rubbed tiger balm on the snooze button. So all that came from embellishing the call when I tripped over the bed. And I think there are times we embellish things a little bit. But to turn it back to the Boston Bruins St. Louis game, I said the player embellished and then he kind of laid there on the ice and then the Blues scored. And of course, the Bruins and perhaps some of the fans were saying, hey, that's just not fair. There should have been a call and there wasn't a call, which takes us to Mike talks about owning the outcome. So what's the difference there, Mike? It wasn't fair, but there should have been a tripping call and there wasn't. And what do you do now?
You move on. You just move on. I mean, so think about the Bruin. I don't remember the name of the guy who embellished, or if he even did embellish. It might be your perception just based on you being a Blues fan. I'm sure there are some Boston fans who say, no, it was absolutely a trip. But, if you go back through and look at and I have no love lost for those in Boston. I'm a Jets fan and I'm an Islanders fan. So watching the Patriots, continue to win Super Bowls and have the Bruins in the Stanley Cup, I've, again, no love lost here. And you've got a decent amount of championships under your belt now. But as you go through this piece, you've got this player who went down on the ice, and had he not embellished, had he got up, because there was a lot of time here, he gotten up from the ice, he would have prevented, or you could see a scenario where he would have prevented that goal from happening. Now, you never know how those things are going to go. But getting back into this piece around controlling what you can control and the challenge of reacting in one way or another is, if one of the things he could have controlled, he couldn't control the fact that he got tripped, but he could have controlled what he did after that and gotten back up and put himself in a position where he could have made a play. So think of the scenarios where you're in, whether it's me tripping on a set of cement steps or Jody, you tripping over a cot. There are things that you can choose to do relative to how you react to those situations. And your reaction to those situations creates opportunity for you in the future. But there's nothing that you're going to be able to do to go back in time and fix the trip, fix the cot, fix the cement step, because it's already happened. It's behind you.
That's right. It's behind you. It happened. Complaining won't help. It just doesn't matter. I think one of my favorite business books, I've probably told you about this book, Mike, is QBQ by John Miller. QBQ stands for question behind the question. And one of the things he talks about in there is his kids. If I remember the story right, I usually read it once a year. I haven't read it this year. But he's talking about I think it was wrestling, but whatever sport, there was a bad call. And one of his kids was complaining, hey, the referee made a bad call and that's why we lost. Something along those lines. And he said, look, it doesn't matter if you played better. The bad call wouldn't have made a difference. You have to play to beat the ref. You have to play to beat the opposition, and you have to play good enough where bad calls by the refs don't matter. That you just keep going. You have to play to beat the other team and play to beat the ref.
You make sure you're prepared. So you try to get into that situation where those outside influences aren't going to have a negative impact. Whether it's getting ready to play in a band concert, and let's say, this is going to be shocking to everybody out there, but I've never played the violin. But I imagine that there's some preparation that a violin player goes through to make sure they're prepared to deliver at a concert. And one of those things might be to check to see if their strings are tight enough on the violin. Another thing that they might check to see is, are those strings playing in the right tune? These are things that you do to prepare yourself for a situation that you can control in advance, and then just let the outcome happen. And if you miss, let's say you make a mistake, then iterate the next time, adjust, and put yourself in a better position for the future. Use it as a learning experience, but don't dwell on it. And I know we talk about this in the context of sports and different conversations. And I have these conversations with clients that I work with and folks that I've coached. But, don't let the last strike beat you. Don't let the last flag that was thrown beat you. It's happened in the past. Move on, compartmentalize, move on, go forward. Control what you can control. And I know there's the serenity prayer out there and this wisdom to know the difference between those things that you can control and those things that you can't control. The thing you can control is the way that you act. The thing you can control is the way that you behave. The thing that you can control is the way that you communicate. The thing that you can control is the way that you show up. All of those other things, they end up just being part of the game that you're playing.
It's such a good way to look at it. It's just all part of the game. And you control what you can control, which isn't the outcome. Yes, you can control the outcome. What I meant, you can't control that situation that in the game we've been talking about, missed tripping call. You can't control that, but you can control whether you get up off the ice and continue to play. You can control so much else, including your attitude and the actions you take, but you can't control what happened, especially when there's someone else involved that they did or didn't do something. You've got no say in that, but you can get up and keep going, and that's what you can control. So this has been good. I will tell you, I even told Mike before we started recording this, I'm like, hey, Mike, we've got friends, we've got people that listen to the show in Boston. Are you sure we should talk about this? Because, I have a pretty clear idea of what happened based on my St. Louis Blues fan glasses, and other people might not like that. But Mike said, oh no, we're talking about it.
And we continue to date this thing. Like Brian Fanzo and I were talking about the Islanders and the Penguins playing just before the series started. And then we pushed the episode live well after both of those teams were eliminated. So for the hockey fans out there, you'll be able to reminisce about this sometime in August. I think that's when this one will go live. And for those who are out there who aren't sports fans, think of any environment that you've been in, whether it's you going into a meeting and someone shows up late, or you go into a meeting and someone asks some questions that really they should have had the answer to because they should have gone through the pre-reading. Or you go into a situation where you've not been very clear on setting an agenda, or heck, you're just driving to work and someone gets into an accident in front of you. Assess the situation, leverage your OODA loops, observe, orient, decide, act. That's what you can do, is you can control the way that you act going forward. And I'd love to hear some stories from the audience around how they have been able to detach, compartmentalize, focus on the things that they actually control, and use that as a way to evolve and improve the outcomes that they're delivering into the organizations that they work with.
Okay, so Mike, if someone has stories they want to share, or if because this is published so far after the Stanley Cup Finals and there's a Bruins fan that wants to say, listen, Mike, why do you have to bring up those bad memories? If they want to reach out for either one of those things, how can they get in touch with you?
I would love to hear from the Bruins fans because, again, Red Sox went on a decent run there. Your Pats went on a decent run there. The Bruins are winning we don't know, right? The Bruins have demonstrated a capacity to win some cups historically. I am hoping that at this point in time, the St. Louis Blues have lifted the cup above their head, and that happens. We'll see what happens with Game 6 coming up here. But the best way to get in touch with us is Twitter, Simmons_M, or @CatalystSale. If you go to our website, catalystsale.com, you can enter into the live chat, and that'll come through our Slack instance, or you can connect with us on LinkedIn. Jody, good luck. I know this is going to be in the future, and we're going to be getting ready for preseason by the time this thing goes live, but I hope your team wins the cups.
Oh, thank you. We'll find out soon enough. And I went to my first St. Louis Blues game about 31 years ago. I'd have to look it up and figure it out, but this is a moment I didn't see coming. Now, of course, if the Blues don't win, I'm going to feel silly having said just that, but just them being in the finals is a pretty fun experience. So thank you, Mike. Hopefully the Blues raise that cup. And if you're not a sports fan, well, neither am I, not really. I just pay attention to the St. Louis Blues. We don't always talk about sports. Just sometimes there's a situation that leads to a great conversation. This is one of those. So if you don't like sports, don't worry. This doesn't happen very often. But join us again. Thank you so much, Mike Simmons. And thank you for listening to the Catalyst Sale podcast.